Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Department of Products Weekly Briefing. Coming up this week, we take a look at Spotify's latest set of audiobook features that it hopes will boost its network effects. Plus, a new report shows us what enterprises are spending their AI budgets on, and Zoom is rebranding itself, but is it too late? As always, if you enjoy this week's briefing, hit the subscribe and the like button. And if you've got any comments about anything we featured in the briefing, just let us know in the comments below. So first up, Spotify has built a series of new tools for authors who publish books on their platform, including analytics tools and promo cards which offer assets designed for sharing across social media. They've also released an immersive follow-along experience which gives users a visual experience to complement listening to audiobooks on the platform. Spotify has confirmed that it's also rolling out a brand new author profile feature early next year, which will allow users to follow their favorite author, which could potentially boost its network effects. Now, the product teams here have clearly thought very deeply about how they might be able to differentiate their audiobook offerings. And these changes, along with some recently added commenting features, could see it begin to transform into more of a social network. What do you think? Are you happy to see that Spotify is attempting to shift away just from content consumption to more of a social interactive network? Or would you prefer to stay closer to its roots and stick to music consumption? Let us know in the comments below. In other news this week, Anthropic has unveiled a new open source protocol that it calls Model Context Protocol, or MCP. It's a new standard for connecting AI assistants to the systems where the data lives, which includes content repositories, business tools, and data environments. So the company has already built some pre-built integrations for things like Google Drive, Slack, GitHub, and more, which are available on launch. And it already counts payments company Block as an early partner for its new protocol. In other AI-related news this week, OpenAI is reported to be considering developing a proprietary web browser, but it isn't close to releasing it just yet. And there's a lot of interest in this space of an AI-powered browser, with Perplexity's CEO also having expressed an interest in this in the past. So with Google potentially set to be forced to sell Chrome, is there a possibility that an AI rival might acquire that? Now, perhaps that's a little bit fanciful, but the prospect of an AI browser is definitely starting to gain momentum, and these first cohorts of AI companies are now beginning to expand their offerings outside of their initial value propositions as models start to become commoditized. Now, if you're interested in keeping up to date with the latest AI trends and technologies, in this week's deep dive report over on Substack, we share a collection of insights, trends, and resources designed to bring you up to speed with everything you need to know today. So that includes things like monetization strategies, the rise of agentic AIs, and what this could mean for product teams, plus how AI is fueling international growth. So head over to Substack if you're interested in reading more about that. Okay, so on to some other news this week. So Zoom is rebranding itself, and it's decided to ditch the word video from its legal name. So Zoom is currently known as Zoom Video Communications Inc., but the CEO has confirmed they're planning to drop the video from its name. Now, part of this is driven by its ambitions to become more than just a video platform. So the CEO says that from now on, it sees itself as an AI-first platform for human connections, and so it's developed this whole ecosystem of different products within its workspace applications. But the question for Zoom really is this pivot too late? Do people still associate the Zoom brand with videos? And is it going to be more difficult for Zoom to shake off that brand perception? Investors certainly think they've got a struggle on their hands, and their stock is still down a massive 85% from the highs of the pandemic. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on from a strategic point of view. Other new features this week include voice transcriptions, which are coming to WhatsApp messages. So this is ideal for users who hate listening to long-winded voice notes, which, if you're anything like me, then you welcome this news, because there's nothing worse than sitting and listening to a long-winded voice note, which could have just been a couple of words. So this new feature will allow users to skip the voice note entirely and just read the transcript that appears below it. This is a really smart use of AI in the context of B2C products. On to some monetization news this week, and Uber is investing heavily in its AI data labeling division called Scaled Solutions. So if you've not heard of this before, Uber has its own product teams which work specifically on data classifying and data labeling for products like its local map services for Ride and digitizing food menus for Uber Eats. And Uber is planning for the first time to sell this service to third parties, and early clients include the game developer Niantic Inc., which is most famous for its Pokemon Go series. So this is a really nice example of companies taking their internal services and then transforming this into a new revenue stream. Uber has been doubling down on developing new revenue streams, and one of the most recent examples of that is its ads business, which is now officially a $1 billion business, which is pretty impressive. Now let's take a look at some tools you can use. So the first up is a product called Circleback. And Circleback is a YC-funded startup, which on the surface does something that every other AI product does, which is to create meeting transcriptions from meetings at work. But one of the ways that Circleback differentiates itself is by transforming transcripts, not just into scripts of what happened, but into action items and automation. So how it does this is it extracts key bits of information and then connects them to things like your CRM, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Slack, and so on. So it's more than just a transcription tool. It's a tool that takes transcripts and then allows you to create actions off the back of them. So if you're interested in getting more value out of the meetings that you get by connecting your transcripts to third parties, then this could be something worth checking out. Another product is called Lightscreen. This is an AI interview assistant, which is designed to help you to hire engineers and also catch anyone who cheats during the process. And AI interviews are quickly becoming one of the fastest growing areas of AI. In a post over on X, the Andreessen Horowitz AI partner, Olivia Moore, outlines her thesis for why the future of interviews is potentially powered by AI voices. So in this analysis, she looks at why AI voices interview is needed. Firstly, because they're extremely costly, they take up a lot of our time. And secondly, she looks at the way some of these tools can actually do it with some examples. And Lightscreen is one of those products that is featured in her thesis. So if you're interested in figuring out whether AI-powered interviews could be valuable for your company, then that could be worth checking out as well. Another tool worth checking out, particularly if you're into tracking your productivity, is a tool called Beams. And Beams lets you track your time across all of the SaaS apps that you use during your day-to-day work. It helps you to understand what you're spending your time on and potentially how you can improve your work habits. So if you feel like you've hit a bit of a rut this year and you're looking to boost your productivity ahead of the start of next year, then Beams could be something worth checking out as well. Now let's take a look at some data and trends to stay informed. First up, this is a stat taken from the State of Generative AI in Enterprise report, which is an excellent report I would recommend you check out. And one of the pieces of data that stood out for me is that code generation makes up 51% of AI use cases in enterprises. This survey took a look at over 600 different enterprises in the US, and they said that code generation is the dominant use case for how they use generative AI in their organization. Support chatbots was second, and enterprise search and retrieval was third. Now, the long-term impact of this on the composition of product teams isn't yet clear, but what is clear, given how far ahead this use case is above the others, is that software engineering is likely to be transformed forever. So there'll be a few nervous engineers who are reading this report who'll be wondering, what does this mean for their futures? And the truth is, as with everything AI, we're not yet sure what this means, but now might be a good time for anyone at the top of these charts to consider supplementing their skills with AI and figuring out how to use AI to augment their capabilities. In the report, it also mentioned that enterprise AI spending has now reached $13.8 billion this year, which is up 6x since 2023. And OpenAI's early mover advantage is also starting to erode as its market share of enterprise LLMs has dropped from 50% last year to 34% this year. The average adult in the UK now spends 4 hours and 20 minutes online every single day, which is up from 3 hours and 41 minutes in 2023. But despite spending more time online, the overall adoption rates of the mobile internet seem to be plateauing. So 57% of the world's population are now connected to the mobile internet, but adoption rates have flatlined year on year. Over 2 billion people still do not own a mobile phone. And the State of Mobile Connectivity report outlines this in a bit more detail. So if you're interested in that, then definitely check out that report. And finally, if you're looking at new ways to grow your product's adoption rates, then you may want to borrow a leaf from the playbook of e-commerce app Shane. In a world full of generative AI and automation, they've adopted a rather peculiar growth strategy, and that is door-to-door catalog sales. So they've employed a series of people who knock door-to-door in Mexico in an attempt to drive adoption, which just goes to show that in order to differentiate yourself in this market, maybe reverting back to old ways of doing things is a good option. And that's the end of this week's briefing. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below if you did. And as always, we'll be back next week with another product briefing. Have a great weekend.